Yeah.
And so how does your role fit into the bigger picture of what the business do?
Yeah, so every day I have a new job because as we grow, I'm needed for different things. In the very beginning, I was everything. I was accounting, I was sales, I was the mechanic, I was labor, I was foreman, I was all of it. And my wife is our CFO and partner in the company. So she, at this point, does all things bookkeeping, right? So she manages all the payables and receivables. I'm more of the visionary overseeing what's going on. So as we grew, it went from me directing guys on a job site to me directing several job sites with on-site foremen to now I have operations managers who report to me and they're solving most of the day-to-day issues, and I'm predominantly giving them support and guidance. A lot of times they're coming to me with hey, how should I handle this? And it's not so much that they don't know what to do, it's that they just need the validation that they're on the right track, right? So kind of build that confidence and say, hey, yeah, that's good. We're on that, that's the direction we should go with this, especially when we get into challenging decisions of how do you handle the problem at hand. We've got, clear processes and procedures, especially employee manuals and things like that. But sometimes it's the situations out of the box that pop up with client projects where it's like, okay, well, how do we handle this? What's the right thing to do here? It's not always a black and white answer. So, and then looking to the future, every decision I make is anywhere from 5 days to 5 years out. So I'm constantly working on that chessboard of what is to come.
Wow. So now kind of going over to the design aspect of, what you guys do. When you designing a space, it's not just about function, it's about beauty, lifestyle, how people want to live outside. How do you approach balancing really all those elements that people are looking for?
Yeah, so we work heavily in the custom realm, right? So we start with exactly what you said, function. What are we trying to accomplish? When I go outside, I want to X. Is it a swimming pool? I want to sit by the fire. I want to have a bocce ball court. What are the boxes we need to check off in this design? Is it just two of you? Do you have 47 cousins that are over every couple weekends? Those are different spaces, right? So from there, we look heavily at architecture. So once we understand the client's functional desires, we look at the home that it's being placed in. So the same design and same project doesn't work everywhere. So those principles of creating reveals and pass-throughs, functional space, or some basic, how much room do I need for a table and chairs, right? So you don't want to slide the chair and hit the wall or fall off the edge of the patio, that kind of thing. So when we combine the architecture and the functions, that's what really creates that space that when you walk into, you don't necessarily know why it's great, but it's just a wonderful space to be in. And when done properly, it's really an addition to the house. It's not just a thing in your backyard. And that goes to the whole perspective of our business model of what are you trying to accomplish versus, hey, lady, where you want your pool, right? It's two different ways to go about things. So we focus very heavily on that, understanding function and then pairing with architecture.
Now, do you find clients that usually come to you with a clear vision as for what they want, or do they really rely on your team and your creativity to help them dream bigger than what they thought was possible?
Well, it's a mix of both. Most clients know they want those functions, but they almost all get hung up on the architecture side, which is, that's my job, right? So you do what you do well and you hire someone else for the rest. They know they want a pool. They know they want a fireplace. They don't know where it should go, how big it should be, what it should look like. And that's where we really come in. Now, sometimes folks have really thought that out. And as we start talking, it would work, but it could be so much greater if it gets massaged and adjusted. So I encourage clients to not think so much about the where, but the what. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Let's see how we can pair that. I want a pool and a hot tub. Well, do you want to use the hot tub all year round? Because the position of that hot tub may be very different depending on that answer and how we put these things together. I want an outdoor kitchen. Do you just want to grill with some drawers? Or are you going to have 15 of your closest friends over here watching the football game and you want a U-shaped bar with all this crazy stuff? Those are two different things. Still checking the same box.
Yeah.
So understanding those things, communicating with the clients, we strive to work beside them, with them and beside them, not across from them. Let them take advantage of our knowledge and skills and use that to create something that's their home.
Is there, just for my curiosity, is there something crazy or unique someone asked you to install for them that's different from the rest?
Yeah, thinking over the years, we had a design, and sometimes the dreams get quashed very quickly by the budget. But one of our favorite jobs is still on our website. I think we did this project over 10 years ago. It started with they wanted 2 pools, which was never had anybody ask for 2 swimming pools. What turned out was one very fun teenage boy playland, diving board, all that good stuff. And the other was really kind of an enhanced water feature that had a separate heating element. It wasn't really a hot tub, but it had scupper fountains that poured into it that the adults could sit up there and have a drink and lounge in kind of a California dip pool. When it wasn't being used as a swimming pool, it made a wonderful water feature, and they did a lot of corporate entertaining. He was a CFO of a national company, and he would have events at his house. So that became kind of an ambiance space. But the factor that was kind of really the wow that you're asking about is when we gave him the proposal, they said, this is a little over the budget where we want to be. We love it. Is there anything we don't need? So we had 2 pools, a full pool house with a bathroom. And I said, well, we don't need the $70,000 underground water slide that goes from the upper level to the bottom layer. We don't need that at all to check all of your functional boxes. And they looked at me and said, well, it's really cool. And I said, oh, it's fantastic. But that wasn't the question. The question is, what don't we need? So yeah, we had another client that we'd done the initial backyard, and then the next year he called and he's like, hey, can you guys build me a tennis court? And we probably, right? So, tell me what you're wanting to do. And he's like, well, I need it to be Olympic specs. And as we got into it, so we go down the road of, well, are you talking about clay? What are you talking about here? And so we got into it, and Dr. Wynn was lovely gentleman. He was in his early 70s, was retiring. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of odd that a guy wants to build this tennis court. Here, it turns out he played tennis in the Olympics for South Korea. And I was like, wow, so this guy really needs a true, he knows the difference between the city park tennis court and a true Olympic tennis court. So we found the balance of all of the maintenance to the cost and all those sorts of things. So every day there's something different, but some of the most creative solutions come from functional challenges, like how do you get utilities in certain places and not have a conduit strapped to the side. So you start to develop accent walls and things that have a certain appeal to them. We've developed a partially sunken hybrid hot tub. You still have to get to things, but we designed a lid to the access hole that really just looks like a step. So it looks like you step up onto it, hang your towel on the rack, and you get in, but that slides off and reveals kind of the hidden access ports, those sorts of things. It's always a challenge. There's always something new. Sometimes I joke and say, people say, have you done this before? I know literally every project has something I've probably not done before, but we got to find a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, something about today's business environment, mundane jobs. You just constantly do the same thing over and over, which gets a lot of boring to other people. But for your case, every job is something new, a new challenge, something to learn from. So I can appreciate that. Have you noticed shifts in what people want in their outdoor spaces over the last few years? Like examples of outdoor kitchens, fire features, low maintenance, landscaping. What do you think?
Yeah, so things definitely continue to evolve. And there's always that new wow factor. COVID really accelerated the demand for swimming pools. The idea of the staycation really became pretty evident. Combining that with just simply the experience you can have in a backyard space that is well designed, some of it becomes generational. So the millennials and the Zs are looking at the experience side of it, where the Xers and the boomers are kind of a little more on what's this cost. It's kind of interesting how the trends go with the generational demand, right? So the millennials, of course, are very well known for living through experiences, which is an awesome thing. So therefore, they're willing to invest in some of the things that others may not be. And it's those little extras like, the LED backlit accent firewall versus just a basic one. Some of those just little tangible differences that add to the budget but don't tip the scales the wrong way. Functional, the outdoor living, the barbecue. We're seeing folks drift away from that, but they are continuing to try to bring more of indoor life outside. So in the kitchen realm, a masonry island with a grill on it doesn't really cut it anymore. It's more true functional cabinetry. So that's led the market to develop some products, stainless steel, powder coated aluminum, some different polymer products that now the outdoor kitchens are starting to function like a real indoor kitchen where you have storage space and People will have a whole separate set of utensils and plates for outside and that sort of thing. So always about having something comfortable and positive in their backyard. And then what that is varies from person to person.
That's interesting. I never thought about the different generations and what they're into, right? I'm a millennial, so I can certainly attest to the experiences and the pools. But that's interesting. So you built a multi-million-dollar business. How do you have leads coming in? How do you generate new leads? All that.
Well, of course, referrals is really the best way, right? And our construction side has an incredibly high close ratio when referrals come in. In fact, a lot of times it's almost like taking orders. You did my friend's house. I want you to do our project. It's awesome. We have recognized we are good at some things like building beautiful backyard spaces, and we are not good at other things like digital marketing. We all thought for a long time, oh yeah, we'll do our Facebook posts, we'll do our Instagram. And then we just didn't, right? It was paved with good intentions. So it turns out we're really not good at social media because we're busy and it's just not our forte. So, we do have an outside marketing firm that specializes in individual business development. So they don't just take on 50 clients and spit out the same thing to each one. They limit it to non-competing. So I'm the only landscape contractor they work with. They do a lot of nonprofit things and, community event publications and large corporate stuff, but they're not representing Ford and GM, right? They're going to represent just one, which is great because then they're focused and they really take a lot of effort to find out what my goals were. There's more to leads than just the phone ringing. You can make the phone ring. Is it the right person with the right mindset, the right budget, it doesn't matter to me if it's 5,000 or 500,000. It really doesn't. Does the project and the budget go together? That's the bigger question. So, and we do everything from $50 lawn mowings to $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 backyards. It's not about big job, little job. It's about, I want to accomplish X and it's going to cost Y. Are we ready to take that step? So dialing in the marketing to create that interest via our website, via specific digital marketing has been kind of how we get to the phone to ring to fill the gap. The grounds maintenance side is heavily relationship built, looking at neighbors, looking at other business contacts, even some good old fashioned door to door on the commercial side, just prospecting and say, hey, what are you looking for a proposal? Are you happy with who you have? And if you get yeah, sure, let's talk, then you jump on it. So it's a lot of prospecting, relationship building. It's not so much a marketing, make the phone ring for the mowing side.
I mean, it sounds like, have you guys put a decent amount of money into marketing, or as you said, just mainly?
Well, that's all perspective, right? And, I'm always asking, $100 is a lot of money if you don't have $100, but, and some, you're only rich compared to some. It's just a matter of number of zeros, right? We worked really hard talking to our advertising team. I always kind of say, where's the knee of the curve, right? Where am I? Yes, I can get more leads by spending more. That's always true. But at some point, what you're investing and what you're getting, your cost per lead is growing. It's not shrinking. So I try to optimize as best we can our bang for the buck. And that doesn't mean being cheap. There have been times when they come back to me and say, Jake, you need to put another 20,000 at this if you want to accomplish your goals. Okay. And I say, well, what if I spend 30,000? I go, well, you're going to accomplish your goal plus 0.1, plus 10%. Well, that's not worth the extra 30% investment. So we go with the 20 grand and have those discussions and figure it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely does. So running a design company, as you know, isn't always glamorous. What's been one of the toughest challenges you had to face in the past couple of years, whether it's labor, materials, or changing customer expectations?
Yeah, customer expectations are hard. And it's and I always try to remember, listen, what is my reaction to the same situation? Because, my wife and I have the same discussions at home. What are we going to do with our money? Are we going to go on vacation? Are we going to buy a new car? Are we going to build a new house? How are we going to spend our money? What are we going to do with it? Are we just going to save it all and have a bunch? Everybody has these discussions. So when you get into these outdoor living projects, they can get expensive quick. And the economy sometimes affects that. Sometimes it doesn't. But what happens, one of the biggest challenges is the importance of this project emotionally that gets placed on the contractor by the homeowner is a really big challenge. As a matter of fact, yesterday I got a phone call. We were doing a liner replacement. The manufacturer provided this guy. We didn't build his backyard, but the manufacturer gave him our name because they were providing a liner replacement for his pool. And said, I said, yeah, we'll do it. And he calls me yesterday, all freaking out because we were supposed to set the liner today. Well, in Northeast Ohio, it was raining today. Couldn't do it. Pushed it to Friday. And he says to me, he's frantic. I've got all these kids coming. His kids and nephews or whatnot are coming over the weekend. They're going to be there for 5 or 6 days. And there's all these kids going to be here Saturday morning. What are we going to do? And I'm like, I have zero control of your family being at your home. That's not, I'm going to do everything I can for you. And that's what I thought. I was like, I want to get it done, but you can't place your emotional happiness on me because it rained on Thursday. Like that, managing that kind of transition between what a contractor can really be responsible for versus the emotional expectation, good or bad, that is placed upon the project and kind of transferred into the construction by the client. So communication goes miles with that kind of thing. The other side of that coin is kind of what we call the toddler in the tub. I don't know if you have kids.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So anybody out there that's got kids, if they're older than 4, 5, 6 years old, you know the toddler in the tub. You go up to little Johnny and you just grab him out of the tub. It's time to get out. There's typically a tantrum involved with that, right? But if you go to little Johnny and you say, Johnny, in 10 minutes, it's time to get out of the tub. Okay, Dad. You go in 5 minutes. Johnny, it's almost time to get out of the tub. I'm going to be letting the water out in a couple of minutes. Okay, Dad. Okay, Johnny, it's time to get out of the tub now. I'm letting the water out. We talked about this. Okay, Dad. And they get out of the tub. Sometimes there's still a tantrum. Contracting can be very much like that. The more you have the discussions up front and just it's not even setting an expectation. It's just about being like, hey, here's what may or may not happen. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to be honest with you. When those things do happen, it's easier to address and move past it. And construction is stressful, especially indoor. I don't do indoor remodeling. That's really the worst. It's stressful because it's a disruption of your daily life. There's people outside your house you don't know. There's noise, there's dust, there's things going on. There's things going on you have zero control of. Construction is very much like herding cats. You feel helpless sometimes because you can't do anything about it. All you can do is rely on the person that you've hired. And even there might be 100 good reasons why, but that doesn't mean it's not frustrating. It's still frustrating, even if there's valid purpose in all of it. So trying to remember, my wife reminds me all the time, like, listen, they've been at this for 6 months. It's not you, it's the circumstances. And the better you can create an experience around the construction, we just started here this year, weekly updates. Even if there was no change to the progress of the project, as our projects are growing, the timelines are growing. And so that stress I'm talking about tends to grow as well. And we found everybody just kind of came down a couple of levels when we sent out an email that said, hey, nothing to report. We're still at the same plan, but at least they know they're not forgotten. And that made a huge difference. I'm very kind of task oriented. So to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense because 2 weeks ago, you said in 3 weeks, we're going to be doing X. And I'm not sure why I got to tell you next week, in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing X, but that's part of the psychology in the relationship. So we do well to acknowledge that and embrace it and adapt to it versus resist it and blame the client for being unreasonable. Right. So it's just all in how you approach things.
Wow. I mean, has cost of labor been an issue for you guys with?
It is. It's always continuing to grow. COVID did two things. One, with materials, that hyperinflation, that was a big challenge for a hot minute too, which fed into customer frustrations because what was a $250,000 project became a $340,000 project or $320,000. And so you're choking on that. Likewise, milk went up too. Your labor's going, I got to eat. I need another $3 an hour to make my bills. So I would say it was probably right around spring of 22. We were fighting a lot of the same labor issues that everybody does. And we said, okay, let's come at this the other way and say, what do we need to pay to get a good dedicated guy? What is that rate? and let's rework our overhead and do everything we can do to sell to that rate rather than trying to jam what we're paying a guy into what the market is charging. That works in the custom world pretty well, because if you follow through and you can provide a product, it's not always about the cheap guy, it's about the right guy. In production oriented, budget driven industries and markets, that doesn't really work so well because everybody's selling the same widget plus minus a nickel and you got to be tight. So for us in the maintenance world, that becomes a challenge. So we end up working on slightly lower margins there to help sustain the growth, because the growth is what scales us, as long as we still got to make money. But I talk a lot to our team about prosperity versus profit. We all need to make money. We all do. But if we can create a better life for ourselves and our clients in the process, someday I'll be dead and I won't need any money. So if I make 100,000 or 110,000, really doesn't matter. I need to be growing and creating opportunities for all of us so that we can all kind of continue to step and progress in our own personal lives as well as our professional.
Wow. Great insight there. I mean, now kind of transitioning over to like technology and innovation. Technology is creeping into every industry. Are you seeing that in landscaping, whether it's 3D design software, modeling, outdoor tech, anything like that?
Yeah. So the two things I am worst at, number one is paperwork. I'm bad at paperwork. I'm not an office guy. I'm outdoorsy. I'm hands-on. I'm a doer. I'm a task person. The other is technology. I'm just bad at it. And it's not because I'm old. It's just because it's just not my strength. I like it, but beyond turning it off and turning it back on again, I'm not real great at it. However, my industry has always been slow to adapt technology, but there are a lot of things coming that are just really slow in development, and even other parts of the world have kind of mastered because some of the manufacturing and safety standards in the US. But routing software, live GPS, we've got all that kind of stuff incorporated. We are transitioning into a new system right now that is paperless for all of our work logs. So it's all tablet based, and we are working to create a proprietary software that from estimate all the way through billing is completely done through the app. That one, we're not getting bogged down in paperwork and missing things, and two, we increase our efficiencies. We've got one of our designers who does 3D modeling is something. All of our design builds, we do 3D modeling fly-throughs. I like to wave my magic wand in the air and say, Michael, come up with this and figure out a way to do this, right? It's kind of I don't know how to do it, but I'm sure you can do it. How do we incorporate AI a little bit more? We were spitballing how, we all get the reels, right? And, and the different things that come through, whether it's the talking babies or the Sasquatch that has some off color comments or whatever it might be. And some of that kind of stuff inspires me to go, like, how do we create, let's see if we can create an advertisement vehicle and pair it with AI where someone can ask for a price on their fertilizer and it just generates it and we approve it and send it out. Just kind of how do we kind of get that technology incorporated, and what else might it be? Things like job photos and the GPS timing helps clarify billing issues. It's super common. Mrs. Johnson will call and say, I got my bill, and last Thursday they didn't mow. I know because I went to the doctor and nobody was here. Okay, well, the GPS says they were outside of your house for 47 minutes. They were, in fact, there, but, so those kind of things. Or no, oh, gosh, we messed up, right? Sometimes that happens, too. That gate swings both ways. Like, hey, you billed me for 4 hours and they were only here for 20 minutes. And you go, well, okay, no, they were actually there for 30 minutes and 3 guys were there. So, you're right, though. It should be an hour and a half billing, not 4 hours. We're happy to correct that. We're not above making mistakes. In fact, we make mistakes just like everybody else. We just try to take responsibility. So incorporating technology is something that I'm trying to embrace. My industry resists it a lot. Robotic mowers are heavily on the horizon, and those are things that
Really?
at first blush, people don't like that because robots taking my job. But the fact is, labor is a challenge, growth is a challenge, demand is high. Right now, the robotic mowers work really well for open spaces like soccer fields, football field, parks, that sort of thing. They're slow, but guess what? There's nobody on it. It's just doing his job. So what if it's 20% slower? Many people look at that as a threat and go, well, you're eliminating the job. Whereas I'm coming from the other angle saying, no, this is enabling us to expand. This is enabling me to to let a good foreman become a field supervisor. And it's enabling me to pay my guys another 30 cents an hour so that when somebody waves $1 an hour in their face, they go, well, I don't know, this is a pretty good place to work. The culture's good. And, I don't know if that's all worth giving up for $50 a week. So I'm trying to find ways to incorporate technology more and more and more, but it's kind of almost a self-generating thing because other than software for billing, the industry doesn't lend itself to it very well. But I see a ton of value for our clients in it, as well as how our people can do their jobs the more we are able to do it.
I've never heard of, I've heard of robot mowers, just like the little small ones that just, but do they have like industrial robot mowers where?
Yeah, so there's a couple of companies out there, the zero turns you see everybody, the big commercial mowers you see everybody riding on, the 2 sticks and they spin around, the big 60-inch decks, that's the standard commercial mower. There's a company that has a completely automated, it's basically a GPS waypoint to set a perimeter. You set exclusion zones and it has sensors on it to drive around and mow the grass. And if you get within 15, or you can set it, but you get in within like 30 feet of it, it stops. But I just recently was in San Francisco this summer on family vacation, and I got in one of those Waymo cabs. Have you seen these things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The first thing I wanted to do was get a hold of the president and ask if he could build me a mower. That thing was incredible. Like it could get within 5 inches of a curb and not hit anything. It stops for people. I mean, this is what my industry needs, right? It's obviously very proprietary and whatnot. And I think those things are in the horizon, and it's certainly going to change my industry. The long-term vision with some of the manufacturers is you go from a 3-man crew to a 1-man crew where you pull up and you drop the gate and the mower, pulls off, and you have the foreman walks around checking visually while the mower and the blower go around and do their thing. Very Jetsons, right? Very George Jetson. A lot of that stuff is coming into reality, but gosh, and I got in a cab and gave it from my phone. I gave a automated car an address. It came up and I got in it and it took me there. I think, it might be 30 years, but I think that's where the industry's going, is your lawn service company is going to have 20 of these setups and it just shows up and there's not a person there at all. But that's a ways out.
Yeah, I would say so. And we'll have driving cars probably before.
Yeah. Well, San Francisco's got them now. I couldn't believe it. It was the coolest thing ever. So that's scary, very scary. The first ride, I was like, I cannot believe this is happening. But it was
part of the reason why I own Tesla stock is because of that.
They're heading there, yeah.
So you kind of mentioned earlier, our community is big on AI and those discussion points and how it's affecting where. And you said you're always trying to like utilize it and figure it out and place it. Where do you think you could see improvements within your business, using AI? Is that, customer service, an AI phone bot, handling with that admin problem, or what's that?
Yeah, so again, some of that I think is going to be generational, right? We, as the generations kind of rotate through and they're more and more integrated with technology, right? So like my daughters don't know a world without the internet. I do. We joke about 80s protocol, if you get lost, was meet at the car, right? Now we're pulling up Life 360 to see where we're at, which is awesome. It's just a different way, So as technology advances in the world as a whole, the generations then kind of adapt into those things as well. I think AI as it's rapidly progressing, customer service and some of the prospecting scheduling. I think you get a lot of auto scheduling, a lot of auto invoicing, things that don't require a human touch. I think it's going to be massively significant. From there, I'm looking forward, and I don't do it a lot now, but I'm looking forward to it. I got a couple friends that are big tech guys, and we've been playing with some of the upper level and of the AI platforms of, okay, I've got an idea, help me develop this idea. So it drives my wife nuts because I've always got a new idea. I'm always working on something, whether it's a new business idea or a new service to add, or like there's always something cropping up and it kind of hatches in my brain like, ooh, what if we did this? So I'm not good at finding those caveats because I'm a visionary and I like to think everything I come up with is certainly perfect and successful, right? Well, that's clearly not true, right? Nobody can do that. But looking into the future, I'm excited about using it for, okay, help me find the holes in this idea, help me develop this new service and what's reality, even legality. Our attorney uses AI prospecting cases and like, okay, where does this really end based on case law and things that would take days and days of research, and maybe you miss something, it spits back in a matter of seconds, probabilities, and it helps us make a business decision sometimes. Like, do we do a trust? Do we set it up? How do we set this up? Well, how do we handle this issue that we're facing? Just kind of using it as a tool, but never ever replacing it for making a decision. I think it's very dangerous to allow it to just decide for you. But I think using it as a tool, an enhancement tool for your own thought processes, is going to be huge.
Yeah, or a crutch. Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Now, looking ahead, where do you see Brothers Grimm in the next 2 to 5 years? Are there services, markets, or opportunities you're excited about?
Yeah, for sure. This is something that I've been working on a lot. I spent the first 15 years of my career just muscling and forging ahead because, I was a strong type A and had a lot of energy and kind of the curse of a young man as well. But came to the point where I realized, I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything, and there are other people who know things I don't. So we starting working with consultants at different times. And I think regardless of your industry, the best, especially small business, especially private ownership, the best thing you can do is find someone else who knows, not only mentors, but a consultant that can take what you're facing, where you want to go, and kind of give you the answers to the test. I'm like, hey, if you want to accomplish this, then you need to do that. And that answer in my industry is different at different levels, right? So a company under $1 or $2 million is an entirely different thing than a company that's $6, $8, $10 million. Completely different. So I'm striving to set my practices, set my management, set my scalability for the company I want to be. Right now, I have a plan in place that we are taking the first steps into this new frontier. It's mildly aggressive, but we have a plan in place to double the size of our maintenance division in the next 5 years. The big steps to do that, number one, was hiring a business developer. We just hired, it's the first time we've ever had a business developer, for a mom. My consultant says we're transitioning and blossoming from a really big mom and pop to a really small corporation. Now, we intend to keep the mom and pop culture, and that's non-negotiable. That's the prosperity over profit. But doing things, thinking about things, and planning for things with purpose and direction is what's going to facilitate that growth and allow our people to grow. So we hired a business developer. We're looking to hire a senior account manager, a seasoned person, with the intention of, as we grow, they become the director of landscape maintenance. They become the vice president of landscape maintenance, right? Our design build side does not have as much of an aggressive growth because high-end residential design work can get away from you. So we want to focus on higher end, higher quality, higher profit jobs, creating as close to perfect as you can get. We never will. We never be perfect. We certainly make mistakes and have issues, but we want to do the best we can, not, grow in prosperity, not volume in that side, so that it's less stressful and more organized, and it can always be better. What is that? The Japanese kaizen, I never say it right. The idea of continuous improvement. No matter how good you are, there's always someone or some way to do it better. And remembering that is always pretty important.
Okay. So as we look to close this out, a question I always like to ask is, if you give one piece of advice to homeowners thinking about transforming their outdoor space, what would it be?
One piece of advice. Well, let's see. Understand that the right contractor is trying to help. That good contractors will ask certain questions. They will also ask to be paid. The cheap guy is not the guy. That doesn't mean that, it's kind of an old adage you hear a lot, but find someone that you can communicate with. Maybe that is the cheap guy. I don't know. But if you can't understand each other and talk to each other, no matter what, it's going to be stressful and difficult. Even if you both think you're doing it perfect, if you just don't communicate well and personalities don't mesh up, you're better to find somebody else. And we do that. That gate swings both ways, right? As contractors too. But make sure you have someone you can communicate with, that you feel comfortable with, and you trust being around your house when you're not there. From there, it should go pretty well.
Okay, so as we like to close out these podcasts, I like to do quick hitter questions you can answer in one word or one sentence.
All right.
What would you say, early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Favorite business tool or app right now?
Our design software for the 3D renderings.
First job you ever had?
I delivered, well, technically mowing grass, but my first actual job, paycheck, I delivered flowers for the local flower shop.
For you. Most underrated skill in your industry?
Communication.
One word your team would use to describe you?
Determined.
Best advice you ever received?
Know enough to know that you don't know everything.
If you weren't in this industry, what would you be doing?
Well, I like to say I would have gone into manufacturing because at least I could control the weather, but I have to do something I'm passionate about. If I'm not passionate about it, I won't be successful.
A favorite way to unwind after a long day?
I'm a car guy. I like to have a project. I like something that doesn't have a demand that I can work on and see visual progress.
Right. Handyman. One thing you wish every customer knew?
It's okay for there to be problems. It's just how you handle them that there's going to be problems. You just got to handle them.
Okay. And then lastly, something on your bucket list.
I'm working on one of them right now. I'm planning a trip to Ecuador next year with a couple of buddies. We're doing a 7-day off-road moto adventure through the rainforest of Ecuador. So that's my bucket list next year. 2 weeks ago, I crossed skydiving off my bucket list. So yeah, but that off-road adventure moto trip in Ecuador is something I'm working on right now.
Skydiving. Wow. Good for you.
Yeah. That was a birthday gift from my wife. I opened it up last year and she said, it's a package for 2 jumpers and I'm not going. So you're going to have to find somebody else. So, but it was incredible.
Wow. Well, we'll end on that. That's a wrap for today's episode with Striker AI Media. A huge thank you to Jacob for sharing his story and the vision behind his business. If you're enjoying this conversation, hit the follow button so you never miss an episode. And if you know someone been dreaming about a backyard makeover, send this their way for a little inspiration. My name is Drew, and I'll see you next time as we uncover more stories from the businesses that keep our communities running.